Chapter 1093. They were not allowed to stay in the hunting grounds for more than a week. Over the next few days, Yi Chen's team hunted a large number of divine worms and earned 19,500 divine coins. By the end of the last day, they had earned 20,000 divine coins. Including 10% of the team reward, it was 22,000 divine coins. It was a huge harvest. At the entrance of the hunting tower, Yi Chen's team walked out. Let's go have a drink. This feels great. Huang Hengfei's face was flushed red. In this hunt, Yi Chen's contribution was the highest, with 36 points, while his was the second highest, with 5 points. According to the distribution, he would receive 2,200 shinbi, which was more than his annual income. I'll treat you to 10 bottles of ice and fire 9 heavens each. Yi Chen had earned 15,840 divine coins in total. His income was close to that of a high-level member. It's your turn to treat. You're a tycoon. Li Wei giggled. After drinking for half a day, the five separated and went about their own business. On the way, Yi Chen met Lu Wenxiu. She told him that Audiobook had reached the 5th level of the God of War Pagoda and had become a member of the Fierce Wind Battle Team 3 days ago. Although the Fierce Wind Battle Team was not as strong as the Flying Spirit Battle Team, it was still one of the top 6 battle teams in the Paradise of Gods. Their leader was not much weaker than Huang Hengfei. Looks like Audio's spear arts have reached a certain level. Yi Chen was not surprised at all. Audio's martial arts phantom would become stronger with every additional martial art. His potential was huge. The path of cultivation was about relaxation and tension. After resting for 3 days, Yi Chen began to cultivate. The first to cultivate was naturally the White Dragon Annihilation. A martial art that contained 2 profound meanings could reach the level of the Sky Extinction Sword, which was already the limit. There was not much room for improvement. However, the White Dragon Annihilation was different. It contained the profound meanings of water and fire. Water and fire opposed each other, so there was still a lot of room for improvement. As Yi Chen was already a mid-level member, he only needed to pay 70 divine coins to cultivate on the 3rd level of the Martial Technique Pagoda, 30 less than ordinary members. For days had passed, and Yi Chen had once again raised his White Dragon Annihilation to a whole new level. It had almost reached the limits of the water and fire profound meanings. In the 3rd floor of the Martial Skill Tower, cultivating martial arts was 100 times more effective than cultivating in the outside world. 4 days was equivalent to 400 days, which was more than a year. To Yi Chen, 1 year was more effective than 2 or 3 years for others. White Dragon, destroy the world. With a swing of the sword, the White Dragon was like a dragon that could destroy the world. Everywhere it went, everything exploded and was annihilated. It was a scene of doomsday that ordinary martial arts would not be able to achieve. It's finally done. Letting out a long breath, Yi Chen felt as if a huge burden had been lifted from his shoulders. The current White Dragon annihilating the world was several times stronger than it was 4 days ago. Even if the Heavenly Stone Statue King came back to life, it would not be able to block this sword. It would die in an instant. This sword was almost the limit of a second revolution martial art. As for the second transition martial arts, it was the grade of profound sense martial arts. Martial arts that contained a type of profoundness were considered as first transition martial arts. It was a second-grade martial art that contained 2 types of martial arts. Martial arts that contained 3 types were rank 3 martial arts. So on and so forth. Of course, in a battle between martial artists, it did not mean that a second transition martial art would be more powerful than a first transition martial art, and a third transition martial art would be more powerful than a second transition martial art. For example, although some people had created a second transition martial art, the fusion of the profoundness was not good enough, and they might not be able to compete with those who had used a first transition martial art to the limit. However, in terms of grade, a second transition martial art was naturally many times more powerful than a first transition martial art, and a third transition martial art was many times more powerful than a second transition martial art. As for momentary glory, it was an exception. Among the second transition martial arts, the White Dragon annihilating the world is already at the peak, and it is many times more powerful than ordinary second transition martial arts. Do I have to create a third transition martial art that contains 3 types of profoundness? Yi Chen muttered. No, the foundation is not enough. If I create a third transition martial art, it will only be a waste of time. Currently, only the White Dragon annihilating the world and Tianju's sword are good enough. The other second transition martial arts have not matured yet. Fine, I will use the destruction sword intent as the essence and create some second transition sword moves. With the White Dragon annihilating the world and Tianju's sword, the other second transition sword moves were no longer of much use, but they could be used to prepare for the third transition sword move. With a stronger foundation, everything he did would be as if the gods were helping him. The first to be tested was Autumn Water. Yi Chen wanted to raise its power to a new level. 3 days later, the new Gold Water Profound Sword move was created. However, it was no longer called Autumn Water, but Autumn Kill. Autumn was originally a bleak scene, and autumn represented gold. Therefore, Yi Chen named this sword move Autumn Kill. Autumn Kill used the destruction sword intent as the essence, and it displayed the killing intent of autumn to the extreme. With a swing of the sword, it was like the arrival of autumn, and all living things would inevitably enter their final stage. After autumn, it would be winter with no life. Another week later, a new second transition sword move was created. This time, it was the Wood and Fire Profound Sword move, Raging Fire Incinerating Spring. Spring represented wood, and summer represented fire. Blazing Fire Incinerating Spring meant that summer buried spring and used wood to fuel fire, making the fire even stronger. With a swing of the sword aura reached an extreme level. Although it did not have the desolate killing intent of Autumn Kill, it was more violent and powerful. If Blazing Fire Incinerating Spring was already domineering enough, then the Fire and Thunder Profound Sword move, Heavenly Thunder Earthly Fire, which took Yi Chen 10 whole days to create, was even more powerful. Thunder and fire had a lot of similarities. Both could cause all living things to burn. When the two were combined, there was nothing that could not be burned. It also had a strong defense-breaking attribute. If one was hit by this sword, even the undying body would not be able to withstand it. Without the sword intent to protect himself, even Yi Chen did not want to be hit by this sword. Although Yi Chen had 7 consummate profounds, when he combined some of them, the power he could bring out was just passable. The last sword move was the Gold Shadow Profound, Life-Snatching Thousand. Life-Snatching Thousand contained the Metal Profound and Shadow Profound. Among the 7 consummate profounds, the Shadow Profound was weaker than the other profounds in terms of offense. Therefore, it was not suitable to combine with the other profounds. The Metal Profound was extremely sharp, which could make up for some of the flaws in its offense. Life-Snatching Thousand was not as powerful as the other sword moves, but its attacking range was much larger. Once the sword was shot out, thousands of golden lights would appear, making it hard to distinguish the real from the fake. 5 weeks had passed, and Yi Chen now had 6 sword moves, namely White Dragon Exterminating, Sky Absolute Sword, Autumn Kill, Blazing Fire Incinerating Spring, Heavenly Thunder Earthly Fire, and Life-Snatching Thousand. In addition, there was Momentary Brilliance, which was not a sword move but could freeze space. Although I don't have the Space Upanishad Tower, I have the Time Tower. I need to upgrade Momentary Brilliance. Among the 7 killing moves, Momentary Brilliance was still one of the best. However, compared to before, it was no longer supreme. At least, the power of White Dragon Exterminating was much more powerful than Momentary Brilliance, and the power of Heaven Absolute Sword was not weaker than Momentary Brilliance. The other killing moves were only slightly weaker. Currently, momentary brilliance only had the effect of freezing space, which was a super killing move. However, compared to the other killing moves, momentary brilliance had the greatest potential. It contained the space profound, and Yi Chen had only comprehended 70% of it. If he could reach 80% or 90%, the power of momentary brilliance would definitely increase by dozens of times. It was not an exaggeration to say that momentary brilliance, which only contained the space profound, was much more powerful than a rank 2 martial skill. Once he mastered the space profound, it could even be compared to a rank 3 martial skill. However, obviously, the space profound was too heaven-defying. There was no space Upanishad tower in the paradise of gods. Therefore, it was impossible to directly improve the space profound. Therefore, he could only start from momentary brilliance. By perfecting momentary brilliance, he could indirectly comprehend the space profound, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. As for the time tower, it had 2 floors in total. On the first floor, 1 day in the outside world was 10 days in the inside world. On the second floor, 1 day in the outside world was 100 days in the inside world. Compared to the Tower of Martial Skills, the Tower of Time was undoubtedly much more advanced. After all, the Tower of Martial Skills could only accelerate the cultivation speed of martial skills. By contrast, the Tower of Time could adjust the ratio of time and improve any aspect. The fee on the first floor of the Time Tower wasn't very high. Ordinary members would have to pay 30 shinbi a day while intermediate members would have to pay 21 shinbi a day. On the second floor, the fee started to skyrocket. Ordinary members would have to pay 500 shinbi a day while intermediate members would have to pay 350 shinbi a day. In the first 5 weeks and 35 days, Yi Chen had spent 2,450 shinbi. He had about 14,000 shinbi left, which was enough for him to stay on the second floor of the Time Tower for over a month. After leaving the Martial Skill Tower, Yi Chen went to the Time Tower. On the second floor of the Time Tower, Yi Chen constantly practiced momentary brilliance and sensed the mysteries of space. As days passed by, momentary brilliance made remarkable progress. 300 days in the second floor of the Tower of Time were equal to 3 days in the outside world. Although the power of momentary brilliance only increased by 2 times, its range had reached 15,000 m. Within 15,000 m, the moment momentary brilliance appeared, everything would be still. 1,000 days on the second floor of the Time Tower were equivalent to 10 days in the outside world. Yi Chen's space ultimacy had finally reached 80%. The brilliant momentary brilliance with 80% of space power Upanishad bloomed with a radiance that eclipsed the other killing techniques. The range of its sword aura had reached 100,000 zhang, which was around 600 to 700 miles. Its attack power had increased tenfold, which was several times stronger than the White Dragon destroying the world. In the past, momentary glory could only be used in close combat. The range of 3,000 zhang was too small. As long as the enemy was careful and kept their distance from him, momentary glory would not be of much use. Unless the enemy's speed was much lower than his, he would be able to force the enemy into close combat. But now, it was different. The range of 1,000 zhang still did not seem very big, but the improvement was not just a little bit. 1,500 days on the second floor of the Time Tower were equivalent to 15 days in the outside world. Yi Chen made persistent efforts to expand the range of momentary brilliance to 150,000 m, namely 500 miles. I'm almost at the bottom. It's just a waste of time. Yi Chen didn't waste any more time on momentary brilliance. He stopped cultivating. After all, good steel should be used on the edge of the blade. No matter how many shinbi he had, he couldn't afford to squander like this. He had spent over 5,000 shinbi in 15 days. Chapter 1094. Next, Yi Chen focused his mind on Zhen Yuan cultivation. Although martial arts were important in life and death realm, it was not something that could be improved just because one wanted to. Zhen Yuan cultivation was the most important. Although Yi Chen's strength had increased by several folds, he was still lacking when facing some powerful 6th layer life and death realm heavenly kings. Advancing from the 6th layer to the 7th layer was a huge hurdle. In order to advance to the 7th layer, one had to condense the Emperor's Mark. If one failed to condense the Emperor's Mark, it would be useless no matter how many years of bitter cultivation. Therefore, there were simply too many experts stuck at the 6th layer, and their strength was also uneven. The gap between the bottom and the peak was definitely dozens of folds. If 6th layer life and death realm heavenly kings were divided into grades, then Yi Chen would only be in the 4th or 5th layer. Above him were the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd layers. And the best way to increase one's strength was to increase one's cultivation base. Yi Chen's current cultivation base was only at the 4th layer. Once he reached the 5th layer, he would naturally surpass the 4th or 5th layer and enter the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd layers, which was much better than creating martial arts. Under normal circumstances, Yi Chen had just reached the 4th sky of life and death realm, and if he wanted to break through to the 5th sky, he would need at least 5 years, or even 10 years. If he wanted to build a solid foundation, even 20 years would not be too much. It had nothing to do with the comprehensive ability, and it did not have to do with the talent either. It was a process of grinding an iron bar into a needle, and it was the accumulation of the foundation. Fortunately, with the time tower, Yi Chen could reduce the time by 100 folds. 20 years could be reduced to 2 or 3 months. Of course, this was only him. There was still a gap between people. Yi Chen was naturally limited in true spirit world. The reason why he could catch up was because his foundation was rising too quickly. He was accumulating every day, and every day was a new self. Others couldn't do the same. Time passed quickly, and the second hunt ended. The harvest of this hunt wasn't as big as the first one. After all, it was impossible to annihilate the enemy paradise teams every time. Sometimes, luck was needed. However, it wasn't too bad either. The total income from the second hunt was 7,000 divine coins, and Yi Chen got a little more than half of it, which was 3,800 divine coins. In the third hunt, the Flying Spirit Battle Team created another miracle, annihilating another Demon Paradise Battle Team, the Sea Demon Battle Team. Their total earnings were even higher than the first hunt, reaching 24,000 Shinbi. Yi Chen received a total of 17,000 Shinbi. In total, Yi Chen had earned close to 40,000 Shinbi in the hunting battlefield, and he had only conducted 3 hunts. Of course, no matter how much Shinbi he had, it was all moonlight to Yi Chen. The Tower of Time consumed too much divine coins. It was like a bottomless pit. On the second floor of the Tower of Time, a middle-level member would earn 350 divine coins a day, or 10,500 divine coins a month. Therefore, each time Yi Chen made a reward, he could only stay on the second floor for about 1 month. Yi Chen, thank you for choosing to join the Flying Spirit Battle Team. Thank you. Huang Hengfei sighed with emotions. He really hoped that Yi Chen could stay in the Flying Spirit Battle Team. With Yi Chen's help, the total earnings of the Flying Spirit Battle Team were more than 50,000. It was unimaginable. It should be noted that it was already not bad for a beginner team to earn 2,000 divine coins in 1 hunt, and 6,000 divine coins in 3 hunts. However, as a middle-level member, Yi Chen had to go to the intermediate hunting ground. Of course, Huang Hengfei also sincerely wished Yi Chen to stay in the Flying Spirit Battle Team. If he stayed in the Flying Spirit Battle Team, he would only be a burden to Yi Chen. Yi Chen had a broader stage and could earn more divine coins. The Flying Spirit Battle Team was just his starting point, not his destination. Without you, I couldn't do it alone. You don't have to thank me. Yi Chen shook his head and continued, Leng Fifan is not much weaker than me. With him, the Flying Spirit Battle Team will dominate the beginner hunting ground one day. Leng Fifan had reached the 5th level of the God of War Pagoda a month ago. With Yi Chen's help, Leng Fifan had joined the Flying Spirit battle team to make up for the lack of members. In Yi Chen's opinion, Leng Fifan was indeed very strong and had great potential. Perhaps he was not good at the spatial profound meaning and could not help the Flying Spirit battle team earn a lot of divine coins. His current strength was not very strong either. However, as time passed and the divine coins increased, Leng Fifan would definitely improve greatly. Of course we believe in Leng Fifan. He is also a rare genius in the paradise of gods. The addition of Leng Fifan made Huang Hengfei and the others very happy. It more or less made up for some of their regrets. On a small path in the paradise of gods, Leng Fifan was walking alone. Before joining the Flying Spirit battle team, he had considered many things, but in the end, he still agreed. He was not afraid to compare himself with Yi Chen. A sabersman could lose, but he must never be afraid. Because a sabersman was a brave man, and a brave man had no fear. Paradise of Gods Hotel. Welcome to the Frost Battle Team. Huan Fuyu reached out and shook hands with Yi Chen. It's my honor. Yi Chen sized up Huang Fuyu and the others and said slowly, did we lose one person? The full number of mid-level battle teams was 6 people. Now, the Frost battle team only had 4 people. Of course, including Yi Chen, it was 5 again. The vice-captain of the Frost battle team, Ho Lei, said in a low voice, there are many strong teams in the mid-level hunting ground. Except for a few teams, no team can guarantee that they can escape unscathed. In the last hunt, we encountered the Demon Beast battle team. Because we were outnumbered, they killed 2 of us. Of course, we also killed one of them. The Demon Beast battle team was one of the mid-level teams in the Paradise of Gods. They were all made up of demon beasts. Yi Chen, I heard that you reached the 7th level of the God of War Pagoda. Su Xiao, the member of the Frost battle team, asked curiously. Yi Chen nodded. After the first hunt, he had reached the 7th level of the God of War Pagoda. However, he was still some distance from the 8th level. The higher the level of the God of War Pagoda, the more difficult it was. Yi Chen passed the 6th level in an instant, but the 7th level was almost 10 times more difficult. It would be a little difficult to pass in a short period of time. That's amazing. I have been in the Paradise of Gods for almost 100 years, but I'm still stuck on the 7th level. After receiving Yi Chen's reply, Su Xiao was very impressed. She had never seen anyone improve so quickly. It had been less than 2 years, and Yi Chen had actually reached the 7th level of the God of War Pagoda. I was a little lucky. Yi Chen was not being humble. He could improve so quickly thanks to the profound meaning of space. Without it, his results would not be so brilliant. Luck is also a part of one's strength. I heard that in the elementary hunting grounds, the Flying Spirit battle team is feared by many teams. I think it's true. Huan Fuyu was glad that he had booked Yi Chen in advance. Although there were not as many teams in the elementary hunting grounds as there were in the intermediate hunting grounds, there were still quite a few. The Flying Spirit battle team could at most be ranked in the top 15. However, Yi Chen had actually made the Flying Spirit battle team one of the kings of the elementary hunting grounds. In 3 hunts, he had wiped out 2 enemy teams and killed 3 people at once. This kind of result could no longer be described as excellent. It was glorious. Come, let's wish our first hunt a success. Huan Fuyu raised his wine glass. I hope I can earn enough shinbi from this hunt. In 1.5 months, Yi Chen had spent all his shinbi. It could be said that he had earned a lot and spent a lot. In his opinion, the Time Pagoda was really not a place that ordinary people could enter, especially the 2nd level. Therefore, Yi Chen could only pin his hope on the intermediate hunting grounds. In the intermediate hunting grounds, killing 1 enemy would be worth 1,000 shinbi. In the team hunting, killing 1 enemy would be worth 12,000 shinbi. If the enemy team was wiped out, it would be 288,000 shinbi. Of course, this was basically impossible. The stronger the enemy was, the harder it was to kill them. Even if they couldn't defeat the enemy, they could still escape. On average, only one team would be wiped out in the intermediate hunting grounds every 5 years. Yi Chen's strength was just ordinary in the Frost Battle team. He couldn't even compare to Huang Fuyu and Ho Lei. Naturally, he couldn't help them wipe out the enemy team. However, even killing 2 or 3 enemies was already a great harvest. In addition to the competition between teams, the harvest of killing mythical insects in the intermediate hunting grounds was also considerable. One mythical insect was worth 200 shinbi. Time passed quickly. The Frost Battle team that Yi Chen was in entered the hunting tower. Their number had increased to 6. They were well prepared. 7 days later, the 6 of them walked out of the hunting tower unscathed. This time, the magical beast battle team finally paid a price. Yi Chen, it's all thanks to your space stop ability. Otherwise, we would have lost 1 or 2 people, and we wouldn't have been able to get so many shinbi. The 6 of them were in a good mood. Although they couldn't wipe out the entire magical beast battle team, they had killed 3 of their members. This was unimaginable. Although Yi Chen's power was only at the 7th level of the God of War Pagoda and was not as powerful as the team leader Huang Fuyu and the deputy leader Ho Lei, he was extremely useful to the team. He had actually surpassed the team leader Huang Fuyu. His instant sword realm could help the others kill their opponents quickly. He was an all-rounder. Ho Lei and Su Zhao's doubts were also dispelled. Before this, they had actually been worried that Yi Chen wouldn't be able to adapt to the harsh environment of the intermediate hunting grounds. However, they had worried too much. Yi Chen smiled and didn't say anything. In this hunt, he was still in first place, with 20 points. Huang Fuyu was 15 points, Ho Lei was 13 points, and the other 3 added up to 12 points. His total contribution was 60 points. As for the total contribution this time, they had earned 72,600 shinbi. Killing 3 enemies was 36,000 shinbi, killing 150 divine worms was 30,000 shinbi, and adding 10% of the team's reward, it was 72,600 shinbi. According to the contribution distribution, Yi Chen had earned 24,200 shinbi. It seemed to be only 30% to 40% more than in the elementary hunting grounds. However, in the elementary hunting grounds, Yi Chen couldn't wipe out all the enemy teams every time. For example, in the second hunt with the Flying Spirit Battle team, he had only earned 7,000 shinbi. The intermediate hunting grounds were much more stable. Perhaps luck had played a part this time, but no matter how bad his luck was, he should have earned at least 5,000 shinbi. This was because Yi Chen's instant sword domain was the nemesis of the divine worms. He could use the divine worms as his biggest source of income. It was even more beneficial than killing enemies. If it weren't for Yi Chen, the total income was estimated to be 20,000 shinbi at most. In the hunting grounds, few teams would tangle with divine worms. Chapter 1095. I'm almost 90% sure to break through to the 5th sky of life and death realm now. On the 2nd floor of the Tower of Time, Yi Chen opened his eyes and let out a long breath. According to the time outside, Yi Chen had stayed on the 2nd floor for more than 3 months, which was about 30 years in the real world. It was a long time. Yi Chen was only in his early 40s. However, he had only been in this world for more than 20 years. Of course, 30 years was not a long time for breaking through to the 5th sky of life and death realm. As for why those geniuses who were only a few years older than Yi Chen could break through to the 5th sky of life and death realm so early, there were several reasons. Firstly, they didn't choose to break through to the 5th sky of life and death realm steadily. Secondly, there were some extremely precious treasures in the universe, which could increase their odds of making a breakthrough. Usually, geniuses at the top of the pyramid would not be in a hurry to break through to the next level. They valued their foundation more than anyone else. For them, foundation meant future. Yi Chen, play with me. On the Thunderbolt court, Huan Fu Yu was invincible. Over 10 people had been defeated by her. Even the vice-captain Ho Lei couldn't stand her precise bombing. Indeed, it was precise bombing. All right. Yi Chen walked onto the court. You serve first. Huan Fu Yu stretched out her jade-like hand and said. Nodding, Yi Chen held the thunder ball in his left hand and twisted it before throwing it high up into the air. Boom! A beam of yellow light shot out, and a bundle of flame appeared on its surface. The flame was extremely compressed and stuck to the surface of the thunderball, making it look like a small sun, shining with an eye-piercing light. Sun spinning ball. Sun spinning ball. Sun spinning ball was more than 10 times more powerful than ordinary spinning ball. Commoners couldn't catch it at all. Lowering her center of gravity, Huan Fu Yu abruptly pulled the iron rod upward. At first, the thunderbolt shot out in a parabola. Then, it suddenly quivered and turned into numerous ball shadows that scattered down at an extremely fast speed like laser beams. Heavenly made scattering flowers. Amazing! It was Yi Chen's first time playing Thunderball with Huang Fu Yu. His opponent's skills were amazing. Although it looked ordinary, it contained dozens of variations of power. Its captain's ultimate move, Heavenly Maiden Scattering Flowers. Thunderball was very popular in the paradise of the gods. Apart from the spinning ball, instant speed ball, explosive ball, speed ball, and other basic balls, the stronger members all had their own unique skills. For example, Huan Fu Yu's Heavenly Maiden Scattering Flowers was a famous unique skill. Letting out a deep breath, Yi Chen's eyes shone with a divine light that no one could look at directly. Those countless balls seemed to slow down, and their trajectories became clearer. Found it. The real thunderbolt flickered incessantly, changing its position from time to time. However, Yi Chen quickly captured its trajectory. Before it could change its position, he swung his rod at it. Boom! The explosion of the expanding airflow rang out, and the thunderball flying at high speed towards Huang Fu Yu grew larger and larger, from the size of a fist to the size of a head, and then to the size of a house, blasting towards Huang Fu Yu. Good move. Huang Fu Yu's eyes brightened. She could see that it was not that the thunderball was getting bigger, but that it was constantly changing its position. Because the changing positions were so concentrated, it gave people the illusion that this move was very hard to block. The outside was just a shadow of the thunderball, while the real thunderball was changing its position inside. It could not be seen from the outside, and it was hard to sense it with soul power. Yi Chen's unique skill, Gigantic Ball. If the ball is bigger, then my iron rod will be bigger too. Huan Fu Yu yelled in a low voice. She held the iron rod with both of her hands and waved it out fiercely. As she waved it, the iron rod expanded rapidly, reaching 5 meters in diameter and 20 meters in length. Looking closely, one could see that this huge iron rod was made up of countless smaller iron rods, similar to Yi Chen's gigantic ball. Boom! Without any suspense, the thunderball was countered back. Captain, watch out! Huang Fu Yu's ability to counter the gigantic ball was within Yi Chen's expectation. Holding his right wrist with his left hand and the iron rod with his right, Yi Chen's body spun half a circle, and fiercely hit the thunderball. This time, it was still a gigantic ball, but this time, it was spinning at a high speed. It was like an enlarged version of a spinning ball. Unique skill, gigantic spinning ball. Huang Fu Yu shook her head. It was already very difficult for her to return the gigantic ball, not to mention the spinning gigantic ball. She was sure that even if she managed to catch it, the thunderbolt ball would lose control and fly everywhere, unable to hit Yi Chen. Crackle. The ball landed on the ground like a flower blooming. Countless ball shadows burst forth, their trajectories ever changing, without any pattern. It's too powerful. I can't even see the trajectory of Huangfu Yu's heavenly maiden scattering flowers. Yi Chen's gigantic ball is even more powerful. He has only been in the paradise of gods for 2 years. I didn't expect him to already have his own unique skill and use it to defeat Huangfu Yu. Huangfu Yu was definitely famous in the paradise of gods. After all, she had already reached the 8th level of the God of War Pagoda, and she was a great beauty. As for those who reached the 9th level, they were all famous people. Of course, Yi Chen was an exception. He had only reached the 7th level of the God of War Pagoda, but he was already one of the famous people. Almost everyone knew about him, mainly because his speed of improvement was too shocking. When he first entered, he was also ridiculously strong, directly reaching the 4th level of the God of War Pagoda. Yi Chen, given your talent, there is a high chance that you will become a battle the arch. Huangfu Yu sighed. Battle the arch? Everyone in the spectator stands was stunned when they heard Huangfu Yu's words. Then, they immediately started discussing. The paradise of gods only has 3 battle thearchs. Can Yi Chen become the 4th? It's really possible. Think about it, in the past 500 years, how many newcomers have reached the 4th level of the God of War Pagoda? You can count them on one hand. Other than that, in terms of improvement speed, Yi Chen is definitely unparalleled. He is the first in the past 500 years, no, in the past thousands and tens of thousands of years. In that case, it is indeed true. After some discussion, everyone realized that Yi Chen indeed had a high chance of becoming a battle the arch. Battle the arch? Yi Chen raised his brows slightly. Entering the 9th level of the God of War Pagoda meant that one had the strength of a sub-thearch. The so-called sub-thearch was almost as strong as a the arch. Anyone below the arch level was invincible. Entering the 10th level of the God of War Pagoda meant that one had the strength of a battle the arch. Battle the arch was not a title, but a general term. It meant that one's strength could rival a the arch. So far, the paradise of gods only had 3 battle thearchs. It was very difficult to become a battle the arch. The God of War Pagoda had a total of 10 levels, and each level was harder than the one before. In the early stages, one's strength would increase by several times. In the later stages, one's strength would increase by 10 times or even more than 10 times. Not everyone could even become a sub-thearch, let alone a battle the arch. There were only slightly more than 30 sub-thearchs in the paradise of gods. Time passed quickly. Yi Chen's second hunt after joining the Frost battle team began. In the intermediate hunting battlefield, the Frost battle team met a strong enemy, the Evil Wind battle team from the Evil God Paradise. The members of the Evil God Paradise were all from the Evil Spirit race. Although the average battle strength of the Evil Spirit race could not be compared to the demons and yakshas, the Evil Spirit race was the best in terms of unpredictability. 6 against 6, the Frost battle team and the Evil Wind battle team started fighting. Huangfu Yu's opponent was the captain of the Evil Wind battle team, the Evil Wind King. The Evil Wind King was very fast, and his movement technique was like a ghost. His weapons were 2 swords, one long and one short. He split his attention and used 2 strange sword techniques to attack Huangfu Yu. Ice the Arch Slash. At this moment, Huangfu Yu was completely different from the usual Huangfu Yu. Her hair was very long, extending to her ankles like a waterfall. Her black eyes had turned pure gold, without any impurities. Faint golden light also appeared on her body. The golden light gathered behind her head and formed a golden halo. The highest state of selflessness, selfless the arch. Kacha. She struck out with her hand, and an icy blue arc of light slashed at the Evil Wind King. What? You've reached the highest state of selflessness. The Evil Wind King was shocked. They were all at the 8th level of the God of War Pagoda, but there were still differences in strength. Some people could only last a few breaths on the 8th level of the God of War Pagoda before failing, while others could almost pass the 8th level of the God of War Pagoda. He, the evil Wind King, had reached the 8th level of the God of War pagoda a long time ago. He was one of the best at this level. He didn't expect Huang Fuyu to be much stronger than him. She had even broken through to the highest state of selflessness, selfless the arch. Wind Howl. Holding the short sword in one hand and the long sword in the other, the evil Wind King twisted his hands. The two arcs of sword chi, one long and one short, intertwined, forming a sinister sword chi tornado that faced the icy blue arc of light. But in the next moment, the sword chi tornado was frozen into a spiral icicle. Yi Chen's opponent was the Phantom Moon King, who specialized in illusions. Kid, don't resist pointlessly. It's your misfortune to have met me, the Phantom Moon King, but it's also your great fortune. The Phantom Moon King was confident, and his eyes shone with a faint light. Facing the confident Phantom Moon King, Yi Chen first released a powerful sword domain, and then used the primordial spirit kill lock on the Phantom Moon King's head. Ah! The careless Phantom Moon King felt pain in his head. He felt as if there were thousands of soldiers and horses galloping in his soul sea. How could he still use illusions? Moment of glory. Without any hesitation, Yi Chen stabbed at the Phantom Moon King. The Phantom Moon King, whose soul was injured and body was suppressed by the sword domain, could only watch as the dragon spring sword stabbed at him. He wanted to struggle, but it was as if he was trapped in a swamp. Not only that, as Yi Chen quickly approached, he discovered that an even more powerful space-stopping power enveloped him, making it difficult for him to even move a finger. No! The Phantom Moon King only had time to roar before his head was pierced by the dragon spring sword. Boom! In the next moment, the Phantom Moon King exploded like a star, turning into a dazzling light and disappearing. With one sword, the Phantom Moon King died. Su Xiao, let me help you. After taking care of the Phantom Moon King, Yi Chen targeted Su Xiao's opponent. Okay. Su Xiao was the weakest in the Ice Frost battle team, and she was in a precarious situation. Her beautiful face was full of sweat. Seeing Yi Chen coming, her face lit up. Chapter 1096. Not good, he killed Fantasy Yin King. How could he be so fast? Su Xiao's opponent was Evil Fist King. Evil Fist King's fist technique was very powerful. Seeing Yi Chen coming over, he was shocked. Although Fantasy Yin King was slightly weaker than him, it was not that much weaker. Furthermore, she was proficient in illusion techniques. If it was a life and death battle, he might not be her opponent. Captain, Fantasy Yin King is dead. Should we retreat first? Evil Fist King had the intention to retreat and transmitted his voice to Evil Wind King. Evil Wind King's expression was very ugly. Fantasy Yin King's death was out of his expectations, and also caused them to be in a passive position. Retreat. Evil Wind King made a prompt decision and ordered a retreat. Do you think you can escape? Yi Chen did not care about the others. Yi Chen's only target was Evil Fist King. Wang, sword domain was pushed to the limit. Evil Fist King, who had just burst out with speed, slowed down again. It was as if he was carrying an immemorial mountain, extremely strenuous. Not good, this is the 5th layer of sword domain. Evil Fist King's face was filled with fear. His domain was only at the 4th layer, 1 layer lower than Yi Chen's. Apart from that, Yi Chen's sword domain contained the power of space freezing, greatly increasing the binding power. How could he not be afraid? Captain, save me! Evil Fist King roared. Evil Wind King, who had already flown far away, turned his head back. Seeing Evil Fist King bound by Yi Chen's sword domain, he was incomparably shocked. He hurriedly said, "Friends from Ice Frost battle team, this time, it is my Evil Wind battle team's fault. I can apologize to you. If you can let Evil Fist King go, I, Evil Wind King, promise you that from now on, my Evil Wind battle team will not target your Ice Frost battle team." What do you think? Let Evil Fist King go and win my Evil Wind Battle Team's friendship. Killing Evil Fist King will only infuriate us, which is not good for anyone. Evil Wind King, scram. Huan Fuyu interrupted Evil Wind King. Pooh! In the next moment, Yi Chen and Su Xiao joined hands to kill Evil Fist King. From beginning to end, there was not a trace of hesitation. Good, very good. Ice Frost Battle Team, listen well. The next time we meet, it will be your time. I hope you don't regret it. Evil Wind King's face turned ashen. He turned around and quickly left with his team. Yi Chen, well done. Even the Wicked Wind Battle Squad was scared away by you. Ho Lei was very excited. The Evil Wind Battle Team was not the slightest bit weaker than them, but 2 of their members had been killed. The result of this battle could be said to be glorious. Of course, all of this was brought about by Yi Chen. Yi Chen's Sana sword domain was simply the nightmare of his enemies. Yi Chen, thank you. Su Xiao wiped the sweat off her forehead as she looked at Yi Chen with admiration in her eyes. There's no need to thank me. I just did what I should have done. As he spoke, Yi Chen activated the badge's screen. It showed that his power output was 22, and his total power output was 60. Obviously, although he killed both the King of Fantasy Yin and the Evil Fist King, the credit did not belong to him alone. After all, if there was no one else entangling their respective opponents, he would not have been able to kill the King of Fantasy Yin and the Evil Fist King. Although the Evil Wind Battle Squad has temporarily retreated, we cannot be careless. We have killed 2 of their people. Within 100 million li, they will easily know of our existence. Huan Fuyu was very steady. Ho Lei nodded, that's right. The Evil Wind Battle Team is not scary. However, if they join hands with other battle teams, we will be in danger. The most important thing now is to leave this place and increase the distance between us. In the hunting battlefield, the most frightening thing was to be surrounded by 2 battle teams. Once such a situation occurred, they would definitely suffer heavy losses, or even be completely annihilated. 7 days' time was very short. Seeing that there was only half a day left before they would leave the hunting battlefield, a huge stroke of luck fell on the 6 members of the Ice Frost Battle Team. It's a swarm of divine insects. Looks like our luck is at its peak. Looking at the dense swarm of divine insects not far away, everyone was not surprised, but delighted. Usually, when they encountered so many divine insects, they would immediately run away. But now, they did not need to run at all. Yi Chen's Space Freeze ability was the nemesis of all divine insects. Without a domain, facing Yi Chen, only death awaited them. They had no power to fight back. The 6 of them were like tigers coming down from the mountain. They rushed into the swarm of divine insects and started a massacre. Half a cup of tea's time passed, and the swarm of divine insects was completely annihilated. A total of 210 divine insects. Adding the divine insects we killed in the past 7 days, we killed a total of 330 divine insects. Exhaling heavily, Ho Lei said excitedly. In this hunt, they had killed 2 enemies and 330 divine insects. 2 enemies gave them 24,000 divine coins, and 330 divine insects gave them 66,000 divine coins, which added up to 90,000 divine coins. Adding the 10% of team rewards, their total income was 99,000 divine coins, close to 100,000 divine coins. Yi Chen contributed the most, 30 divine coins, accounting for half of the team. He could get 49,500 divine coins, which was enough for him to cultivate on the 2nd floor for 4 months. Huan Fuyu was still the second, contributing 12 divine coins, which gave her about 20,000 divine coins. Ho Lei was the third, contributing 8 divine coins. The other 3 only added up to 10 divine coins, but it was not low either. Each of them could get 5,000 to 6,000 divine coins, which was far more than before. After leaving the hunting tower, Yi Chen directly headed for the Tower of Time. This time, he wanted to break through to the fifth layer of life and death realm. In the blink of an eye, a month passed. Finally, I have 100% confidence. Breaking through to the next realm was no small matter. If the Tao Gate collapsed, the losses would outweigh the gains. Perhaps, one's realm would drop from the fourth layer of life and death realm to the third layer, second layer, or even back to the initial state. This was no joke. If one's realm dropped, it would take at least a year and a half to regain it. In the next hunt, one would most likely die miserably in the hunting field. Therefore, everyone could still try their luck outside. After all, if one's realm dropped, they could just cultivate again. As long as they had enough yuan stones, this was not a problem. However, inside the god's paradise, no one dared to break through to the next realm without sufficient preparation. As for how to determine whether one was confident or not, it naturally depended on the sturdiness of the Tao Gate. The sturdier the Tao Gate, the more confident one would be. In order to strengthen the Tao Gate, one could only refine it with Jin Yuan. This was a long process, and had little to do with talent and perception. What mattered was the grade of the cultivation technique. The higher the grade of the cultivation technique, the purer and more powerful the Jin Yuan would be. Naturally, the speed of refining the Tao Gate would be faster. Others would need dozens of years, but one would only need half the time or even less. After cultivating for a total of 4 to 5 months in the second floor of the Time Tower, which was equivalent to 40 years in the outside world, Yi Chen finally had a 100% chance of breaking through to the fifth level of life and death realm. Not only that, during this extremely long period of time, Yi Chen's Green Lotus Sword spell had also improved, from the original mid-level of Heaven Realm to the high level of Heaven Realm. Along with the improvement of the Green Lotus Sword arts, Yi Chen discovered that his Jin Yuan had started to develop in the direction of Sword Yuan. It should be known that Sword Yuan was several times more powerful than ordinary Jin Yuan. Only people with sword bodies could nurture Sword Yuan within their bodies, such as Battle King Elysium's Platinum Sword Body and Copper Sword King's Bronze Sword Body. Although Yi Chen had not broken through to the next realm, his strength had already improved by a lot. The Green Lotus Sword arts had made his Jin Yuan purer and more powerful, as sharp as a blade. Another day passed, and 100 days passed in the outside world. Yi Chen walked out of the Tower of Time. One could see that the Jin Yuan aura on his body was several times more powerful than before. His entire body was like a peerless sword, capable of slicing through anything with a wave of his hand. The fifth layer of life and death realm is even more powerful than I imagined. My strength has increased by at least 3 to 4 times. Tightly clenching his fist, Yi Chen's Jin Yuan surged as he punched out. Streaks of sword light shot out like 10,000 arrows, creating a frightening momentum. However, the consumption of yuan stones is too much. This time, I've spent a total of 200,000 yuan stones. Life and Death Realm had 9 layers. With each layer, one's Jin Yuan had to be purified. This purification process was extremely harsh. After 100% of Jin Yuan had been purified, only 30 to 40% would remain. Therefore, one's Jin Yuan was definitely not enough to break through to the next realm, and required a large amount of yuan stones. As for refining the yuan qi of heaven and earth, it was like pouring a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. Not in a hurry to challenge the god of war pagoda, Yi Chen headed for the Thunderbolt Stadium. Today, there were many spectators in the Thunderbolt Stadium. At a rough glance, there were at least 200 people. Zhou, Leng Fifan, and the other newcomers were present, as well as Huang Fuyu and the others from the Ice Frost battle team. Yi Chen, sit here. Huang Fuyu beckoned to Yi Chen. Nodding, Yi Chen walked over and sat to Huang Fuyu's left. There are quite a lot of people today. Yi Chen asked curiously. Ho Lei turned his head and explained, I don't know what's going on today, but these high-ranking members are all here playing Thunderbolt Ball. In the past, they were always elusive. Reaching the 9th floor of the God of War Pagoda or the 8th floor of the Survival Pagoda allowed one to become a high-ranking member. Therefore, the majority of high-ranking members were quasi-emperors. However, high-ranking members were different from low- and middle-ranking members. High-ranking members only needed to hunt once a year. It was extremely difficult to see them, and it was even more difficult to see them together. There were 2 high-ranking members playing Thunderbolt Ball in the stadium. From their auras, one was a human and the other was a demonic beast. Huang Fuyu introduced, the one on the left is the Purple Lightning Spear Monarch, a quasi-emperor. The one on the right is the White Tiger King, also a quasi-emperor. However, the White Tiger King has already won 4 consecutive matches. The Purple Lightning Spear Monarch doesn't seem to be a match for him. The White Tiger King's original form was a white tiger. White tigers and giant dragons were beast kings of the same level. Yi Chen sized up the White Tiger King and discovered that he had already reached the Heaven Demonic Realm. The so-called Heaven Demonic Realm was equivalent to the highest level of the Selfless Realm, the Selfless Emperor. Once one reached the Heaven Demonic Realm, it was equivalent to refining all the demonic beast genes in one's body. One would be able to maintain a human form eternally, and one's strength would be unimaginable. A human's body would be able to perfectly unleash the demonic beast's strength. Every time the White Tiger King swung his rod, the Thunderbolt Ball would shoot out like an explosion. It was many times more powerful than the exploding ball. After a few rounds, the Purple Lightning Spear Monarch felt powerless. His arms were sore and numb. The Thunderbolt Ball he shot out didn't have any power or technique. White Tiger King, I've lost. Laughing bitterly, the Purple Lightning Spear Monarch admitted defeat. Chapter 1097. The Purple Lightning Spear King was definitely one of the best among the high-ranking members of the Paradise of Gods. The number of people who were more powerful than him could be counted on 2 hands. However, compared to the White Tiger King, he was undoubtedly a lot worse. In addition to the 3 major battle emperors of the Paradise of Gods, there were also 4 very powerful quasi-emperors, known as the 4 major quasi-emperors. The White Tiger King ranked second among the 4 major quasi-emperors, second only to the Celestial River King. Therefore, apart from the 3 battle emperors who had a 100% chance of defeating White Tiger King, the others were at most on par with him. Defeating him would be extremely difficult, and even a draw would be difficult. Purple Lightning Spear King, it's already pretty good that you can exchange a few rounds with me. After all, my strength is much higher than yours. White Tiger King was very proud, but not hateful. You're right. Purple Lightning Spear King smiled and said to the others, it's rare for us to run into each other. We can't let White Tiger King take the lead. I'm going down. Who else? His gaze swept across a black-robed youngster and a silver-robed youngster before walking down. I'll go. The black-robed youngster thought for a moment before his figure flickered and landed on the court. It's 10,000 Arrow King. This is going to be a good fight. 10,000 Arrow King was an expert in archery, ranked 3rd among the 4 half-emperors. His archery skills had reached perfection, and he could kill his enemies from millions of li away without missing a single shot. 10,000 Arrow King, I wonder how much your strength has improved after so many years. White Tiger King squinted his eyes. Clearly, 10,000 Arrow King was a great threat to him, making him apprehensive. Same here. 10,000 Arrow King casually waved the iron rod. Whoosh! Whoosh! The heavy iron rod seemed to be weightless in his hands. You serve first. White Tiger King said indifferently. I'll do as you say. As he spoke, 10,000 Arrow King's gaze turned extremely sharp, condensing into a thread. As an expert in archery, 10,000 Arrow King had trained a pair of eyes that could see through people's hearts. Being stared at by this pair of eyes was like being stared at by the eyes of a death god. Weaker life and death kings would immediately lose their fighting spirit and collapse. Ping! 10,000 arrow king served. Under the impact of the iron rod, the thunderbolt ball shot out. Midway, it suddenly turned into a bright red arrow, its speed sharply increasing. 10,000 arrow king's unique skill, arrow Dao ball. A ball that attacks people. Yi Chen's brows wrinkled. Everyone else, including himself, would try to make their opponents miss the ball, but the myriad arrow king was hitting the opponent's body. Of course, Yi Chen could see that the myriad arrow king's ball was aimed at the white tiger king's flaw. It seemed like a simple strike, but it actually contained thousands of variations. Good timing. White Tiger King knew the myriad arrow king inside out, so he wasn't surprised at all. He raised his iron rod high, and when he swung it, the thunderbolt ball's trajectory slightly deviated and automatically ran to the end of the iron rod. Boom! If the myriad arrow king's ball was like a sharp arrow, then the white tiger king's ball was like a cannon. No matter how skilled you were, a single cannon blast would smash you to pieces. The myriad arrow king didn't dare to be careless. He lowered his center of gravity and changed from holding the iron rod with one hand to holding it with both hands. The muscles on his upper arms bulged, emitting creaking sounds. The next moment, the myriad arrow king took a step forward, transferring all his strength through his spine to his arms before finally pouring it into the iron rod, striking the thunderbolt ball. This strike was too violent, and when it collided with the equally violent thunderball, the thunderball was flattened. In a thousandth of a blink of an eye, the thunderball was sent flying in an irregular trajectory, full of instability. Snake spinning ball? No. Curve ball? Also not right. There seems to be two completely opposite forces inside. Yi Chen watched seriously. It's arrow Dao billiard ball. The white tiger king seemed to have a card up his sleeve. His body split into two and flew in two directions. Just as he expected, the thunderbolt ball's internal forces collided and suddenly split apart. Both were so real. No, there's three balls. Suddenly, the white tiger king discovered that he was wrong. The thunderbolt ball didn't split into two, but three. Of the three balls, two were fake, but the speed of the balls was too fast. With his eyesight, he couldn't tell which one was real, nor did he have the time to observe. Among the quasi-emperors, his eyesight wasn't the worst, but it wasn't the best either. It could only be said to be above average. His strength lay in speed and power, which was his mobility. As expected of the myriad arrow king. His balls are ever-changing and unpredictable, just like his archery skills. The purple lightning spear king inwardly exclaimed. Want to defeat me? It's not that easy. The two white tiger kings roared. The one on the left stomped the ground with its right foot, and its body trembled, splitting into a figure that shot into the sky. Who? Who? Bang! Of the three balls, two were illusions, and one was real. It was ruthlessly lashed out. Arrow Dao, ever-changing. The myriad arrow king's expression was indifferent. His eyes seemed empty, as if he wasn't looking. He used his left hand as the bow, the iron rod as the bowstring, and the thunderbolt ball as the arrow. Swish! 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 No one could describe how terrifying this ball was. This ball flickered in the air, and it seemed real and illusory at the same time. In the spectator stands, many people felt dizzy, and their eyes were dazzled by this ball. Amazing! Yi Chen's eyes lit up. He had thought that Huang Fuyu's heavenly maiden scattering flowers had enough variations, but he didn't expect the myriad arrow king's ultimate move to be 10 times more varied. The white tiger king was one of the 4 great quasi-emperors. Although his battle prowess wasn't equal to his ball skills, even if his ball skills were only half of his battle prowess, it was enough to make the vast majority of people look up to him in awe. He swayed left and right, and one White Tiger King after another darted out. Suddenly, the vast area was filled with his figures, constantly swinging his rod. White Tiger King, you've lost. The Myriad Arrow King lowered his right hand that was holding the iron rod. Crackle. In midair, the thunderbolt balls collided with each other, and their trajectories changed again. At this moment, the Myriad Arrow King, the instigator of all this, couldn't see where the real ball was. Pa! A beam of yellow light smashed behind the White Tiger King and bounced high. The White Tiger King lost. Myriad Arrow King, I underestimated you. I didn't expect your archery to have reached such a level. The White Tiger King had to admit that his ball skills were a bit worse than the other parties. White Tiger King, don't you know that the Myriad Arrow King can already compete with the captain and the other two in terms of ball skills? The one who spoke was a silver-robed young man. The silver-robed young man was the leader of the four great quasi-emperors, the Celestial River King. The Myriad Arrow King shook his head and sighed, it's just a few moves. Once they get serious, I can only last a few rounds at most. The three people that the Celestial River King mentioned were the three great battle emperors of the Paradise of God, namely the Vast Martial King, the Vermilion Bird King, and the Divine Saber King. The Vast Martial King had a terrifying talent in the martial Tao. The Vermilion Bird King's body was a Beast King Vermilion Bird, with a speed as fast as the speed of light. The Divine Saber King's saber skills were miraculous, and even ghosts and gods would find it hard to escape. These three were the peak powerhouses of the Paradise of God, and everyone's goal. Celestial River King, what's wrong? Don't you want to compare notes with the Myriad Arrow King? The White Tiger King originally thought that the Celestial River King would take the field, but after hearing his words, he seemed to think that he was not the opponent of the Myriad Arrow King. I'm not sure if I can handle his ever-changing skills. The Celestial River King shook his head and smiled bitterly. The White Tiger King remained silent. In terms of strength, he had more than 50% confidence in defeating the Myriad Arrow King. However, when it came to ball skills, he and the Celestial River King were indeed not the opponents of the Myriad Arrow King. He estimated that only the Vast Martial King and the others could beat him. Yi Chen, actually, I think you can exchange a few moves with the Myriad Arrow King. Although his ever-changing skills have more variations than my Heavenly Maiden scattering flowers, with your eyesight, you should be able to narrow it down to 10 balls. Huangfu Yu greatly admired Yi Chen's eyesight. Moreover, Yi Chen's cultivation base was now at the 5th heavenly layer of life and death realm, which meant that he was much stronger than before. My confidence is too small, no more than 30%. Yi Chen, on the other hand, was not very optimistic. In terms of eyesight, Thousand Arrow King, who was an archery expert, was not inferior to him. In terms of technique, he had stayed in the Paradise of Gods for hundreds of years. In terms of cultivation base, he was a 5th layer life and death realm expert, while the other was a 6th layer life and death realm expert. His only advantage was soul power. Soul power was different from eyesight. Eyesight was actually insight, while soul power was sensing. Sensing first, then insight. Therefore, his reaction speed was very fast, and he rarely had to be on the passive side. However, just because his soul power was strong didn't mean that he could defeat the Myriad Arrow King. The opponent's ever-changing skills were not static, but constantly changing. Even if he could sense it, he might not be able to do it. It was like someone waving a fist at you, and you could see the fist coming at you, but you might not be able to dodge it. In other words, the opponent had the strength of the 9th floor of the God of War Pagoda, while he had the strength of the 7th floor. The gap between them couldn't be ignored. The 3 battle emperors didn't come. After Myriad Arrow King won 4 matches in a row, he felt bored and left the stage. Seeing that Myriad Arrow King, White Tiger King, and Galaxy River King didn't come up, the other half-emperors became lively and invited others to compete. In the afternoon, these half-emperors left one after another. I wonder how strong the 8th floor's opponent is. Although his strength had increased by 3 to 4 times, Yi Chen only had the confidence to pass the 7th floor. As for the 8th floor, he didn't even have 10% confidence. According to Huang Fuyu, the 8th floor's difficulty was 5 to 6 times higher than the 7th floor. In the God of War Pagoda, Yi Chen directly arrived at the 7th floor. The 7th floor's opponent was a barbarian, a true barbarian. He had many tattoos on his body and a white bone necklace on his neck. His bald head shone brightly as if it was cast from steel. Last time, Yi Chen had been beaten miserably by this barbarian. His sword qi could only cut through the opponent's skin and couldn't penetrate deep. Moreover, the opponent's weapon was an axe, which was as heavy as a mountain. Just the pressure from the axe alone made one feel like vomiting blood. Come on. Without using the 3 flowers borrowing technique, Yi Chen faced his opponent head-on. Ding ding ding. The axe clashed with the dragon spring sword, sparks flying everywhere. With a swoosh, Yi Chen's figure flashed and suddenly appeared behind his opponent, chopping off his opponent's left arm. My cultivation has reached the 5th heaven of life and death realm, and my Jin Yuan is leaning towards Sword Yuan. My power has indeed increased a lot. Unforgiving, Yi Chen's sword art was like a venomous snake. Once he attacked, it would be a fatal blow. Soon, the barbarian couldn't hold on any longer, and his body was torn into pieces. In the next moment, Yi Chen arrived at the 8th floor of the God of War Pagoda. Chapter 1098. The 8th floor's opponent was a Yiksha king whose skin was no different from a human's. In the Yiksha race, those with gray skin were ordinary Yikshas, those with light gray skin were mid-level Yikshas, and those with human-like skin were high-level Yikshas. At the same realm, the higher the bloodline grade, the stronger the battle strength. This Yiksha king was the guardian of the 8th floor of the God of War Pagoda, so he must be terrifyingly powerful. Without any nonsense, the Yiksha king stabbed his spear at Yi Chen. The Yiksha race usually liked to use spears. So fast. This spear was so fast that it looked like a flash of light. Slightly shifting his body, Yi Chen blocked the spear with his sword and punched at the Yiksha king's chest with his left hand. The Yiksha king reacted extremely fast as he also formed a fist with his left hand and clashed with Yi Chen's fist. Dong! Yi Chen was pushed back a few hundred meters, leaving a trail of qi behind him. 6th level life and death realm, 6th level spirit body, peak 6th level will. Apart from martial will, the Yiksha king's attributes were much higher than Yi Chen's. If not for Yi Chen using the 4th drive and the protection of his sword intent, the Yiksha king's punch would have shattered Yi Chen's left arm and destroyed his body. A terrifying aura erupted from Yi Chen's body, and 3 different colored flowers appeared above Yi Chen's head. As the 3 flowers appeared, Yi Chen's essence, qi, and soul surged, and his hair fluttered in the wind. Myriad flower snatch. With a wave of his sword, thousands of sword shadows flew out and bombarded the Yiksha king's protective energy barrier, making clanking sounds. Although they couldn't break through the Yiksha king's defense, they forced him back. For a moment, he couldn't gather his energy to counterattack. After the first attack was effective, Yi Chen followed up with a second attack. This time, it was the wood and fire profound sword move, burning spring fire. The sparks turned into a prairie fire that engulfed the Yiksha king. The Yiksha king was the guardian of the 8th floor after all. Although he couldn't counterattack, he could still block. The spear in his hand slashed left and right, shattering one flaming sword light after another. Heavenly lightning and earthly fire. At this moment, Yi Chen's sword aura changed. The prairie fire turned into heavenly lightning and earthly fire. Beams of lightning and fire sword light shot towards Yiksha king like a meteor shower. Yiksha king was slightly careless and was immediately pierced through by a beam of lightning and fire sword light. His left shoulder was charred black and smoke rose in spirals. Ha! Yiksha King roared and smashed all the lightning and fire swords with his spear. Die! By the time the fiery and thunder-like sword light dissipated, Yi Chen's silhouette had already disappeared. When he reappeared, he was already on the left side of the Yiksha King. He flicked the dragon spring sword and thrust it forward. The bleak and desolate aura of autumn spread out, and the sword light was chilly. Metal and water profound sword move, autumn slaughter. Just as the tip of the sword pierced through Yiksha King's skin, Yiksha King's left hand grabbed the sword at lightning speed, making it impossible for the dragon spring sword to advance any further. Yiksha King's palm was unimaginably hard. Humph! Yi Chen snorted coldly. He twisted the dragon spring sword and pulled it out. Yiksha King's left hand's 5 fingers were immediately broken. Without his left hand to block, Yi Chen used autumn's slaughter again and pierced through Yiksha King's heart. Just as the sword light was about to explode, Yi Chen's scalp suddenly went numb. His entire body flew backwards like a bird, dodging Yiksha King's total annihilation. On the ground to his left, a huge canyon was split open, stretching all the way to the horizon. Just now, it looked like they were going to perish together, but in fact, Yi Chen knew that his sword attack couldn't kill Yiksha King, and Yiksha King's total annihilation could turn him into a bloody mist. Even his protective sword intent couldn't block it. The 8th level of the God of War Pagoda was more than 5 to 6 times harder than the 7th level. If not for his superb battle techniques, Yi Chen wouldn't even be able to threaten Yiksha King. Although his techniques are not as good as mine, there are too few flaws to exploit. That series of attacks just now was Yi Chen's test. He wanted to see if he could use techniques to kill Yiksha King. But it was obvious that the God of War Pagoda didn't have such flaws. If he wanted to defeat Yiksha King, he had to use absolute strength. Since that's the case, let's see how strong you are. Abandoning all techniques, Yi Chen slashed out directly. The violent sword aura transformed into a white dragon and swooped down. Profound truths of water and fire, White Dragon destroys the world. Yiksha King's face was expressionless. He raised his bronze spear high and suddenly slashed down. The huge spear shadow was like a heavenly pillar, smashing the white dragon into pieces. Seeing that Yiksha King had destroyed the white dragon destroys the world so easily, Yi Chen smiled bitterly. He knew that even his most powerful instant of glory wouldn't be able to do anything to Yiksha King. At most, Yiksha King would be slightly injured. Furthermore, Yiksha King hadn't used any powerful moves yet. As expected, instant of glory couldn't completely suppress Yiksha King. Yiksha King paid the price of losing his left arm. Yiksha King held the bronze spear in his right hand and thrust it forward. The tip of the spear condensed into a huge sun. Yi Chen couldn't dodge at all and was burned into nothingness by the sun. After reaching the 8th level of the God of War Pagoda, Yi Chen wasn't in a hurry to enter the Survival Pagoda. Yi Chen was currently on the 7th level of the Survival Pagoda. If he reached the 8th level, he would become a high-level member. Yi Chen wasn't ready to enter the high-level hunting battlefield yet. The high-level hunting battlefield was a paradise for battle thearchs and sub-thearchs. No matter how strong one's survivability was, it would be difficult to move an inch in there. One had to know that from the 8th level to the 9th level of the God of War Pagoda, the difficulty had increased by more than 10 times. It wasn't as simple as a few times before. In a situation where there was a difference of 10 times in strength, the instant of sword domain and instant of glory were useless. Of course, Yi Chen could also let a high-level team carry him, but Yi Chen didn't like to be a burden. The hunting battlefield wasn't a game. If one wasn't careful, there would be heavy casualties. This was a cruel battlefield, and there was no room for carelessness. The reward for reaching the 7th level of the God of War Pagoda was 3,000 divine coins. It was a good reward. If he could also pass the 8th level, the reward would be even higher. The reward for reaching the 8th level was 10,000 divine coins. Yi Chen had only reached the 8th level of the God of War Pagoda and hadn't passed it yet. In addition, if he could pass the 8th level of the God of War Pagoda, which was the 9th level, and become a high-level member, he would be eligible to use divine coins to exchange for a set. The most ordinary Heavenly King set would cost 300,000 divine coins, a mid-level Heavenly King set would cost 1 million divine coins, and a high-level Heavenly King set would cost 5 million divine coins. It could be said that the higher the level, the more divine coins would be needed. One could never have too many divine coins, only too few. Yi Chen currently only had a little more than 40,000 divine coins, which was far from enough. After leaving the survival pagoda, Yi Chen went to the hotel for a drink. There were many people in the hotel. Looking around, Yi Chen found that all the sub-thearchs who had played in the Thunderbolt Stadium were here, such as the Galactic River King, White Tiger King, Thousand Arrow King, Purple Lightning Spear King, etc. Finding a corner to sit down, Yi Chen bought 10 bottles of Ice and Fire 9 Heavens to drink. "Brother, you don't mind if I sit here, right?" A young man in yellow walked over. Surprise flashed across Yi Chen's face. This young man in yellow had the strength of a sub-thearch. According to Huang Fuyu, he was called the Sky-Splitting King, and his strength was not much weaker than the Purple Lightning Spear King. Nodding, Yi Chen said, "I don't mind, sit down." "Many thanks." The Sky-Splitting King smiled and sat down. "Ice and Fire 9 Heavens, this wine is not bad, but we high-level members rarely drink it. We drink magma wine and ice sea wine. Magma wine costs 50 divine coins per bottle, and ice sea wine costs 30 divine coins per bottle. Come, try it, I'm sure you'll like it." The Sky-Splitting King handed Yi Chen a bottle of magma wine and ice sea wine. "Magma wine, ice sea wine?" Yi Chen asked curiously, "Why can't we buy them?" "Haha, in the paradise of gods, some things are only available to high-level members, and the treatment is different. Of course, junior and intermediate members can't afford it." The Sky-Splitting King explained. "The magma wine costs 50 divine coins per bottle, and the ice sea wine costs 30 divine coins per bottle. Ordinary people indeed couldn't afford it, just like how Huang Hengfei couldn't bear to drink the Ice and Fire 9 Heavens." Opening the cork, Yi Chen tilted his head back and drank a mouthful of the magma wine. Boom! As the wine entered his body, Yi Chen felt as if his entire body was erupting like a volcano. All his cells became active, constantly absorbing the wine's energy. Good wine, the effect of tempering the spirit body is several times better than the Ice and Fire 9 Heavens. Yi Chen praised. Putting down the magma wine, Yi Chen drank another mouthful of ice sea wine. Ice sea wine was different from the magma wine, it made Yi Chen's soul extremely calm, so calm that even if the sky collapsed, he wouldn't care. The magma wine tempers the spirit body, while the ice sea wine tempers the mind. Outside, only titled monarchs can drink these two wines frequently. The Sky-Splitting King leisurely drank a mouthful of wine, his movements extremely elegant. Both are good wines, but it's a pity that they're only available to high-ranked members. After drinking the magma wine and ice sea wine, Yi Chen felt that the taste of the Ice and Fire 9 Heavens wasn't as refreshing as before, and he couldn't help but smile bitterly. With your improvement speed, becoming a high-ranked member is just around the corner, and my paradise of gods will have another fierce general. The Sky-Splitting King clearly knew Yi Chen, and laughed. "You're too kind, I'm still far from it." Not to mention others, just the Sky-Splitting King alone was probably 10 times stronger than him. Among the quasi-emperors, he was an elite like the Purple Lightning Spear King. The Sky-Splitting King sighed, in a paradise, although the strength of a quasi-emperor is important, it's not enough to control the situation. Only the strength of a battle emperor can suppress everyone. You have great potential to become a battle emperor, and your low strength now doesn't mean anything. After all, you've only been in the paradise of gods for 2 years, and if you're given a few more decades, it's hard to say. Everyone wanted to reach the strength of a battle emperor, but everyone had their own limits. Most people were stuck at the 8th level of the God of War Pagoda, and the elite could reach the 9th level of the God of War Pagoda, possessing the strength of a quasi-emperor. This ratio was usually 10-1, which meant that out of 500 people, only 50 would have the strength of a quasi-emperor, and the ratio of battle emperors to quasi-emperors was also 10-1. Out of 50 quasi-emperors, about 5 could become battle emperors. Currently, the Paradise of Gods only had over 300 people, over 30 quasi-emperors, and 3 battle emperors. Yi Chen asked, "What's the situation in the other paradises? How many battle emperors and quasi-emperors are there?" The sky-splitting king shook his head. "I don't know the exact number, but the demonic paradise is publicly recognized as the strongest. They have close to 10 battle emperors, and close to 100 quasi-emperors. The other paradises are about the same, and the difference isn't too big. For example, the evil god paradise also has 3 battle emperors, the barbarian god paradise has 2 battle emperors, the Wuxia god paradise has 3 battle emperors, and the giant miracle god paradise has 4 battle emperors. The demonic paradise is so strong." Yi Chen couldn't help but fall silent. The demons were indeed the overlords of the universe, and their strength far surpassed the other races. Chapter 1099. When you become a high-level member, you will understand how powerful the demon god paradise is. If you are not united, you will be annihilated by them. Therefore, every time we hunt, we will move as a group. This way, we can take care of each other in the hunting battlefield. You have to remember that the Wuxia race, evil spirit race, and demons are in an alliance with the demons. The barbarian race, giant race, and us humans are in an alliance. This alliance is equally effective in the hunting battlefield. Of course, under no circumstances should you entrust your fate to others. There will be internal conflicts between races, let alone alliances. Understood? Yi Chen nodded. After taking a sip of wine, the sky-splitting king continued, "Actually, it's not only in the hunting battlefield. In the outside world, we are also at odds with the geniuses of the enemy races. The demons are our greatest enemies, and we want to kill them. However, every time there is a war, it is the human race that suffers. The demons are a super race with all kinds of branches. There are as many geniuses as there are stars in the sky. It is not an exaggeration to say that a single demon is equivalent to 30% of the power of the universe, and the top combat power of the demons is at the peak of the universe. Do you know the Dark Witch and Dark Goddess of the demons?" The sky-splitting king asked. "Dark Witch?" Yi Chen nodded slightly. Murong had the bloodline of the Dark Witch. As for the Dark Goddess, he did not know about her, but she should not be weaker than the Dark Goddess. The Dark Witch and Dark Goddess have the sacred bloodline of the demons. They are few in number, and their combat power is unparalleled. Any one of them can cause a bloodbath. Currently, in the demon god paradise, there is a Dark Goddess who has the strength of a combat emperor. She is the strongest among all the combat emperors. I have seen the Dark Goddess from afar, but I am ashamed that I do not even have the courage to fight her." The sky-splitting king said bitterly. Yi Chen didn't speak. The universe was boundless and boundless, with hundreds of races standing in great numbers. Any powerful genius wouldn't surprise him. At this moment, he somewhat missed the people of True Spirit World. However, he couldn't go back yet. If his guess was right, there would certainly be titled monarchs of demonic race guarding the True Spirit World. Without sufficient strength, he would only be throwing his life away. At the very least, he would have to reach the 10th floor of War God Pagoda and possess the strength of a battle emperor. I'm not telling you this because I want you to join our team in the future. It's because I can feel an indescribable aura from you. This aura is very calming. If you continue to improve at your current rate, you'll very likely become the leader of the Paradise of God in the future and lead us to fight against the demon geniuses. The sky-splitting king had a special ability since he was very young. This special ability was a premonition, a kind of intuition. For example, when he was about to encounter danger, he would feel a sense of danger. The greater the danger, the stronger the sense of danger. This ability could not only be used on him, but also on others. His friends had avoided danger many times because of this ability. Similarly, this special ability could also allow him to see a deeper level of aura that others could not. Sky-splitting king, what are you guys talking about? A beautiful lady in colorful clothes walked over. The sky-splitting king smiled. Nothing much. Come, let me introduce you. This is the super rookie, Yi Chen. He is currently a member of the Frost Battle team. Yi Chen, she is the Rainbow King. Like me, we are both from the Vermilion Bird Battle team. So you are Yi Chen. I have been wanting to meet you for a long time. Hearing this, the Rainbow King looked at Yi Chen curiously. There were 3 powerful rookies in this divine trials, and each of them was very impressive. Among them, the most legendary one was undoubtedly Yi Chen. He had just entered the paradise of gods, but he already had the strength of the 4th level of the God of War Pagoda. After 2 years, he had already become a mid-level member and joined the Frost Battle team. His progress was very fast. Yi Chen smiled and invited the Rainbow King to take a seat. Sky-splitting king, I see that you and him are very congenial. Did you discover something? The Rainbow King secretly sent a voice transmission to the Sky-splitting king. The Sky-splitting king did not hide anything and replied, I don't know if it is my imagination, but I have a feeling that his future will be very glorious. Glorious? This is very normal. We are all quasi-emperors. Which one of us won't have a glorious future? To be able to become a member of the paradise of gods, one's future might not be glorious, but at least it was bright and promising. And to be able to reach the 9th level of the God of War Pagoda and have the strength of a quasi-emperor, one's future could only be described as glorious. Of course, the prerequisite was that one didn't die. No, I feel a very unique aura from him. This aura makes me very calm. Although the Qiongwu King, the Vermilion Bird King, and the Divine Blade King also have this aura, it is very weak. But he has a very strong aura, like the sun. Is it that exaggerated? The Rainbow King knew the Sky-splitting King's ability, but he was still skeptical. Even if I tell you all this, you probably don't understand. Forget it, we will see his achievements in the future. Then, we will know if my feeling is wrong. Actually, the Sky-splitting King was not very sure himself. Some things could only be proved with time. The 3 chatted for a while. Suddenly, a strong energy wave came from outside the hotel, like an earthquake. There were people fighting, and both sides were terrifyingly strong. This energy? It is the leader and the Divine Blade King fighting. The Sky-splitting King's senses were very sharp. Let's go and take a look. The Rainbow King stood up. Not far from the hotel, there was a huge empty space. This empty space was used for sparring. At this moment, 2 figures were fighting intensely. One was wearing a fiery red robe, his hair was like flames, and his body was releasing shocking heat. The other was holding a black long blade, and when the blade light flashed, thunder exploded. It is the Vermilion Bird King and the Divine Blade King. Why are they fighting? They should be testing how much they have improved. The two's battle caused a huge commotion. More and more people rushed over, discussing. Sky-splitting King, do you think the leader has the upper hand this time, or the Divine Blade King? Seeing the battle between the Vermilion Bird King and the Divine Blade King, the Rainbow King was not surprised at all. The 3 battle emperors of the Paradise of Gods often sparred with each other. Sometimes, it would be the Vermilion Bird King against the Divine Blade King, and sometimes, it would be the Vermilion Bird King against the Divine Blade King. Among the 3, the Qiongwu King was the strongest, and he had almost never lost. The Sky-splitting King muttered, it is hard to say. The leader and the Divine Blade King are equally strong. It is possible that one of them has the upper hand. You are right. The Rainbow King nodded. Divine Blade King, this is the second-rank pinnacle martial art that I have recently created, Star Flame Divine Fist. Take this. The Vermilion Bird King's right fist was like a burning hot iron, glowing red as it punched towards the Divine Blade King. The Vermilion Bird King's attack speed was very fast. With one punch, it reached the Divine Blade King in an instant. The Divine Blade King could only raise his long blade to block. Clang! Countless sparks exploded. This punch was unimaginably powerful. The Divine Blade King was blown tens of li away, crashing into the protective barrier at the edge of the empty ground. He spat out a mouthful of blood. Such a powerful attack. Yi Chen said in shock. The Sky-Splitting King laughed. Actually, among the three great battle emperors, the Qiong Martial King and the Divine Blade King have both created third-rank martial arts. Only our leader, the Vermilion Bird King, hasn't created a third-rank martial art. However, our leader's original body is the Beast King Vermilion Bird. Under the situation where their martial arts realms are the same, our leader's strength is more than 10 times stronger. Nodding his head, Yi Chen knew that the comprehension of demonic beasts was not as good as humans. It was already very impressive for the Vermilion Bird King to be able to create a second-rank pinnacle martial art. The strength of his comprehension was not any weaker than some of the top human geniuses. However, the Vermilion Bird King was a beast king after all. The strength of its origin power allowed it to stand above the masses. Wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, the Divine Blade King sneered, "Vermilion Bird King, this punch of yours can only make me spit out a mouthful of blood. I wonder if you will be able to take my Shadow Thunder Sky Flash slash." Swoosh! The Divine Blade King raised his long blade up high and slashed out rapidly. In the next moment, the blade light dazzled everyone's eyes. Vaguely, everyone could see countless light black blade lights flying towards the Vermilion Bird King. Although the Vermilion Bird King's speed was fast, the blade lights were even faster. Moreover, there were too many blade lights. There was no way to avoid them. With a serious expression, he avoided the area where the attacks were the most concentrated. Immediately, he crossed his arms and chose to block. Clang 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 clang. Black and red interweaving sparks burst out from the Vermilion Bird King's body. In an instant, the Vermilion Bird King suffered hundreds and thousands of attacks. Third-rank martial art. It was Yi Chen's first time seeing a third-rank martial art. The Divine Blade King's Shadow Thunder Sky Flash slash contained three types of profound meaning, namely the profound meaning of Yin, the profound meaning of thunder, and the profound meaning of light. Although these three profound meanings were not completely integrated and there were traces to follow, it was still a third-rank martial art after all. It was not an exaggeration to say that any one of the countless blade lights attacking the Vermilion Bird King could easily kill him without any suspense. Seeing the Divine Blade King, Yi Chen knew how big the gap between him and the Battle Emperor was. As for the Vermilion Bird King and Yi Chen, they were not the same type. The Vermilion Bird King relied on his innate talent as a demonic beast. Jiu, Leng Fifan, and the others were also watching the battle from the side. Jiu's eyes were filled with a strong battle intent. This battle intent was so strong that it was almost burning. It turned out that the Battle Emperor was so strong. The gap between him and the Battle Emperor was at least 100 times. He had only recently reached the 6th level of the God of War Pagoda. He, who was a little relaxed, once again burst forth with an unimaginable battle intent. One day, I will also stand at the peak. When I raise every type of martial art to a certain level, who can be my opponent? Jiu said firmly in his heart. Leng Fifan's attention was completely focused on the Divine Blade King. As a saber user, Leng Fifan could feel the terror of the Shadow Thunder Sky Flash slash. This terror not only did not make him depressed, but it also made his tenacious and slightly numb nerves excited, and his whole body was trembling. Saber Dao, move forward bravely and cut through all obstacles. Divine Blade King, thank you for giving me a stronger motivation. Leng Fifan turned and left. Chapter 1100. Blood splattered. Vermilion Bird King was injured. His arms were covered with dense knife marks. Although they were not deep, they undoubtedly broke through Vermilion Bird King's defense. Boom! Scarlet flames erupted and the knife marks were refined. Vermilion Bird King looked up at Divine Saber Monarch. What a good shady thunder sky flashing slash. It actually broke my fiery red tyrant body. Fiery red tyrant body was a protective martial art passed down in the Vermilion Bird clan. This martial art was very unique and could increase the defense of a demon body by several times. With the fiery red tyrant body, Vermilion Bird King did not need to cultivate other defensive martial arts and only needed to focus on offensive martial arts. Although Divine Saber Monarch's shady thunder sky flashing slash was strong, it could barely break through his defense. Same here. Divine Saber Monarch frowned. The last time they fought, Vermilion Bird King's defense was not this strong. He did not expect that in a few years, there would be a big breakthrough. It's a draw. Vermilion Bird King Starfire Divine Fist made Divine Saber Monarch vomit blood, while Divine Saber Monarch's shady thunder sky flashing slash broke through Vermilion Bird King's defense and gave him a superficial wound. Too strong. Is this the strength of a battle emperor? They can probably seriously injure us with just a wave of chi. That's natural. Battle emperors are more than 10 times stronger than ordinary quasi-emperors. They are also much stronger than peak quasi-emperors. Yes, those who have just reached the 9th floor of the God of War Pagoda are ordinary quasi-emperors. Those quasi-emperors who are about to pass the 9th floor are peak quasi-emperors. Vermilion Bird King and Divine Saber Monarch reached the 10th floor 50 years ago. They should be ordinary battle emperors. They are much stronger than peak quasi-emperors like Galactic River King and White Tiger King. The spectators discussed animatedly, each expressing their own opinions. Yi Chen nodded when he heard everyone's words. There was a difference in strength between the 9th and 10th floor of the God of War Pagoda. For example, one had just reached the 9th floor and the other was about to pass the 9th floor. The gap between the two was estimated to be 6 or 7 times, not to mention battle emperors. As for Yi Chen himself, he should be above average in the 8th floor of the God of War Pagoda. There was still a long way to go before he could pass the 8th floor. The gap between him and battle emperors was more than 100 times. Of course, 10 times or even 100 times was a very mysterious metaphor. Take an ordinary person for example. A slightly stronger adult could fight against 2 ordinary adults. This was twice the combat power, but could this mean that their quality was twice the difference? That was impossible. The difference in quality between Yi Chen and a battle the arch wasn't 100-fold. At most, it was 10 times. The more powerful a martial artist was, the higher their quality was, the stronger their combat strength would be. This was mainly because an individual had too many qualities, and when they were combined together, it would be called combat strength. Combat strength was a comprehensive embodiment. You two have improved a lot. In the distance, a figure shot over and landed in the crowd. This person wore a long gray robe with a huge black, martial, character embroidered on the back. He was nearly 2 meters tall, with broad shoulders and a slim waist. His eyes were unfathomable. It's King Qion Wu. King Qion Wu is here. The young man in the gray robe was the leader of the 3 battle thearchs in the Paradise of Gods, King Qion Wu. Every paradise had a leader. King Qion Wu had reached the 10th level of the God of War Pagoda 100 years ago, earlier than Vermilion Bird King and Divine Saber King. At that time, there were 4 battle thearchs in the paradise of gods. Apart from King Cheon-woo, 1 died, and 2 left the paradise of gods. King Cheon-woo should have the strength of a mid-level battle thearch. He once used the secret art Hand of Martial to crush a peak-stage sub-thearch and a planet. The sky-splitting king had a hint of respect on his face. Hand of Martial. Crush a peak-stage sub-thearch and a planet. Yi Chen was very clear that crushing a planet and destroying it were 2 different concepts. For a normal person with great strength, he might be able to break a brick, but for him to crush a brick, it would be impossible. King Cheon-woo, you're here. Vermilion Bird King and Divine Saber King didn't want to continue fighting. They looked at King Cheon-woo. King Cheon-woo smiled and said, "We will enter the hunting ground in 1 day. Come, let's drink until we're drunk." They had already agreed on the time to enter the hunting ground. When the time came, they would come out separately. "Okay, this time it's my treat." Divine Saber King nodded. "Then you'll have to spend a lot of money. I won't get drunk without dozens of bottles of wine." The 3 walked side by side to the hotel. As for the others, they were not qualified to walk side by side with them, even if they didn't mind. In a flash, 8 days passed. At the entrance of the hunting tower, one by one, quasi-emperors came out. Sigh, I didn't expect King Zishan to fall. The high-level hunting battlefield is getting more and more cruel. King Zishan was one of the 4 quasi-emperors. His death was indeed unexpected, but it's understandable that the person who killed him was Evil Child King of the Evil God Paradise. King Zishan, one of the 4 great quasi-emperors of the Paradise of Gods, ranked 4th behind the Celestial River King, White Tiger King, and 10,000 Arrow King. King Zishan excelled in defense. Even the Celestial River King would not be able to break through his defense in a short time. However, he unfortunately encountered the Evil Child King and ended up being hunted down. Evil Child King, the strongest quasi-emperor of the Evil God Paradise, was also one of the 2 strongest quasi-emperors in the entire high-level hunting battlefield. The other one was the Silver King of the Giant Spirit Divine Paradise. Evil Child King was a peerless genius. Less than 10 years after entering the Evil God Paradise, he broke through to the 9th floor of the God of War Pagoda. It was said that because of his fast cultivation speed, he maintained the appearance of a 13-year-old boy. Therefore, he was called Evil Child King. In addition, Evil Child King had a terrifying record. He had escaped from several battle emperors. Once was the Giant Head King of the Giant Spirit Divine Paradise, the other time was the Barbarian Bone King of the Barbarian God Paradise, and the last time was the Divine Saber King of the Paradise of Gods. It could be said that his fierce reputation in the high-level hunting battlefield was no weaker than that of ordinary battle emperors. Walking at the back were the 3 battle emperors, the Cheon-woo King, the Vermilion Bird King, and the Divine Saber King. The Vermilion Bird King said in a deep voice, "This time, the Paradise of Gods lost a total of 4 quasi-emperors, 1 more than last year. In the past 5 years, there have been no more quasi-emperors." The Cheon-woo King sighed, "We are still fine." Although the Giant Spirit Divine Paradise only lost 1 quasi-emperor, they also lost a battle emperor. The price was heavy. Every battle emperor was precious. They were the stabilizing force and the backbone of the Paradise of Gods. I can only say that he was very unlucky to have encountered the dark goddess of the demonic god Paradise. If it were us, I reckon that only the Cheon-woo King could have escaped, the Divine Saber King said slowly. In the high-grade hunting battlefield, there were 2 strongest quasi-emperors and 3 battle emperors. The 2 strongest quasi-emperors were the Evil Child King and the Silver King. The 3 battle emperors were the Barbarian God Paradise's Barbarian Bone King, the Yiksha God Paradise's Blood Spear King, and the Demon God Paradise's Blessed Queen, Dark Goddess. The Dark Goddess bloodline was a powerful bloodline blessed by the Demon God. Among the demons, they had a pivotal position. They could activate the blessed halo and their battle prowess would multiply. Their terrifying strength was enough to crush any opponent of the same realm. Fortunately, the Dark Goddess did not have the astonishing speed of the Dark Witch. Otherwise, they would be everyone's nightmare. Let's not talk about this anymore. Let's go and drink. The next hunt will be another year later. The Cheongwu King let out a heavy breath and walked towards the hotel. The cruelty of the high-grade hunting battlefield had nothing to do with Yi Chen. He spent most of his time practicing martial arts to build a good foundation for creating a third-grade martial art. Spring passed and autumn came, year after year. In the blink of an eye, 3 years had passed. In the intermediate hunting battlefield. Run, it's the Frost Battle team from the Paradise of Gods. In the distance, a middle-grade team from the Wuxia God Paradise immediately fled when they sensed the arrival of the Frost Battle team. They did not hesitate at all. It was as if the Frost Battle team was some kind of demon. Everyone, stay here. 3 flowers of different colors appeared above Yi Chen's head. His speed doubled, and in a short while, he was 10,000 li behind them. Wang, in an instant, the sword domain expanded to its limit, enveloping 4 members of the Wuxia God Paradise who were slightly slower. It caused their speed to decrease by several times, as if they were stuck in a swamp. Damn it, let's fight it out with him. If we run, we'll only die. Being enveloped by the sword domain, the 4 Wuxia kings were determined to die. They turned around and charged towards Yi Chen. Others say that you're the Grim Reaper of the intermediate hunting battlefield, but I don't believe it. Come, let's see how you can block the combined attack of the 4 of us. In the first 2 years of the 3 years, Yi Chen had become famous in the intermediate hunting battlefield. In the past year, Yi Chen had become the Grim Reaper of the intermediate hunting battlefield. Any team that encountered them would be severely injured, and no one would be able to escape. Even the few strong teams in the intermediate hunting battlefield were no exception. As time passed, Yi Chen and the Frost Battle team became a taboo in the intermediate hunting battlefield. Everyone kept a respectful distance from them, and when they encountered them, their only thought was to run. This was also the reason why the scene just now had happened. Boom, 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 boom. The 4 Wuxia kings each used their ultimate moves, blasting towards Yi Chen with ferocious expressions. If it were in the past, facing the 4 Wuxia kings together, Yi Chen would definitely use Moment of Glory or White Dragon Destroyer, because only these 2 attacks could compete with him. But right now, Yi Chen did not choose to use Moment of Glory or White Dragon Destroyer. Instead, he used his Burning Spring Burning Art. The huge sword chi turned into a boundless fire that swept toward the 4 of them. Puff, 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 puff. Their ultimate moves collapsed one after another, like snow meeting the scorching sun, vanishing without a trace. The powerful wave of fire that had yet to dissipate completely drowned them, leaving behind only ashes and indestructible armor and weapons. Run! The 2 Wuxia kings who were running the fastest turned around and saw this scene. Their eyes were wide open, and they did not dare to turn around to fight. They each performed their forbidden secret arts, increasing their speed once again. Yi Chen did not chase after them. In that short while, the distance between them had increased to millions of miles, and Huang Fuyu and the other 4 had not caught up yet. Putting away the 4's storage rings, armors, and weapons, Yi Chen stood where he was, waiting for Huang Fuyu and the rest. Extreme rank 2 martial arts are indeed powerful. Huang Fuyu, who had arrived first, looked a bit numb. In the past year, she had seen this phenomenon dozens of times. Whether it was the enemy teams or the godly bugs, they would all be easily taken care of by Yi Chen. She suspected that Yi Chen already had the power of the 9th level of the God of War Pagoda, which was the power of a half-emperor. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.